Welcome everyone to another quick live stream here, putting things into perspective. The other day Apple announced finally M2 based Mac Minis and also some other Mac Pros. But I wanted to particularly shortly talk about the Mac Mini because certainly there are many people always amazing, but I would also say Apple kinda lacks innovation a bit because just a tiny bit slow. Also the Mac Mini looks the same for a decade now. But more to the point, a warning, if you're interested in this stuff, of course it's relatively good, more to that in a second, but don't buy the entry level Mac Pro, Mac Mini. It is cheapish, $599, I think it's a little bit cheaper now, but it is ridiculous, right? Because for $599, sure, it is cheapish, but I would call this configuration unusable, right? Why? Because it has only 8 gigs of memory here, 8 gigs of, oh wait a second, why does, this probably remembered. So it comes with 8 gigs of memory here and 256 gig of SSD. And while SSD is relatively okay-ish, although I guess the performance is also limited with it, but 8 gigs of memory, right? This is like entirely unacceptable in this day and age. It's basically, you boot the OS, you open some tab, you cannot even use it for video editing, or sure, you can use it for answering an email, but this configuration is nonsense, right? And also for this price, I would really say, as like at this price, you could expect 16 gigs of memory in 2023, right? That you need to pay $200 or euro more for like a usable configuration. And this also, it's a pure marketing move, right? Instead of giving Apple fans and users some really good value for their money, no, they're only advertising this and breaking off, hey, it's $599 when for a usable configuration, I would even, because you can never upgrade that except with external USB connected SSDs. So basically, I would even say to future-proof that a little bit, this is, I would call the bare minimum configuration, right? So don't buy this cheap entry-level configuration. You will regret it. Even selling that later on eBay when you some months later realize, man, 8 gigs of memory are really ridiculous in 2023. You need a new one, and this is also everything soldered down, right? The new AIO all-in-one stuff. It's like, yeah, good luck. This is why professionals like me and others for years, for a decade, shout out, I understand memory at least, performance and low power, but that the SSD is soldered in there, most likely anyway. It's like, yeah. The other thing is, also like, if we compare this, I would also say this entry-level $599 price, they probably only did that also because this Microsoft Windows Dev Kit 2023 here is $599. So and this is also at Microsoft for $599. Yeah, can you do that also? More to that even in another minute. But if you look at this Microsoft Dev Kit here, it comes with 32 freaking LPDDR4, this LPDDR5, but not that the 4 and 5 price would be the different, and also with 500 gigs of memory. Right? And the crazy stuff is, sure, the Microsoft thing is slower and you can't directly boot macOS, which in my opinion, macOS is also, with all the peak bugs, even I don't use it as a daily driver anymore, unless I live stream from home, but macOS is these days full with bugs, and you don't have many professional applications left with the App Store and all the vendor lock-in stuff. So in my opinion, macOS is not the biggest purchase thing there. But the crazy stuff is you can't even upgrade the entry-level thing to that, I think it's 512, right? And the price comes truly ridiculous if you compare this, right? 32 gigs of memory, 512 SSD. So yeah, you can't even upgrade it to that, and then it's 1,200. And if you choose another Mac SKU here for more, you can't even, so there's some SKU, maybe the Pro SKU or what. So you need to start with the Pro SKU or whatever to even be able to max it out to that. And then it's like 1,700, right? So the only saving grace to the Mac Mini is that the the Microsoft Dev Kit is half the performance due to the not as amazing CPU here with the Snapdragon 8 CX Gen 3 SoC just because Apple has the best ARM silicon, Apple silicon there of this ARM ISA. So putting that in perspective, yes, but the SoC is such a small part of that, right? Also the fraction of the cost. Apple makes it themselves. So if you can make it as cheap here for the entry-level SKU, then comparable performance should not cost as much. How much is the performance difference? Here's some preliminary Geekbench score. So when we take a look at this, yes, the performance is kinder half. That is a reality, but and that is also what performance forward. But the other thing is, if you choose here these prices, what I meant some minutes ago, coming back to this, right? These prices are extremely ridiculous as the memory here, right? So you only buy 8 gigs of more memory for $200 freaking dollar, and on the free market here for the Horizon stuff here, and even the last year's unmatched RISC-V desktop comes with 16 gigs of memory. So these prices are ridiculous. I don't know what drugs they hand out there in Cupertino, but for this $200, you get like 32 gigs or so of regular modules for your PC building stuff, right? And if you choose here what I would call a minimum configuration, so if you want to buy this because you appreciate the performance, you either run Asahi-based Linux distributions like our T2, probably not really macOS for professional work anymore. This would be the base configuration, at least. But if you want to future-proof that, I would certainly something like that, 24 gigs, or if you like really future-proof that for like at least 2 years and some serious work, 32 gigs of memory, right? And if you go for if you say, okay, you do development, Xcode and 3D stuff and video editing and so on, I'm sure this is tremendous performance, but I would also suggest, so you don't probably usually need, it's also ridiculous, right? 300 minutes, this is already quite some hefty upgrade. But 300 euro just here for some 2 CPU cores and 3 GPU cores, it's like, yeah. They have high performance and they certainly let users pay for that. And the crazy stuff is, if you max this out a little bit, especially, if you max this out like for that because you are a Mac fan, Apple fan, or a Linux ARM fan, and you want performance, you certainly don't want to go with half a terabyte of SSD, right? If you add this here a little bit, and so coming back to these prices, right? They are so ridiculous that for that price, for a freaking 2 terabyte SSD, even portable or M.2, they are half the price on the open market, right? Here, 400 euro or dollar for a terabyte, right? You get 2, if not, for these prices, you start, basically the prices on the open market for normal PC components are freaking half. And the performance for the SSD is not even that different. And if you spec this out here a little bit like that, you are $2,500. Starting at $599, yeah, for unusable base configurations that has absolutely no future proofing. And also, the next thing is gigabit, right? Sure, for normal stuff, gigabit Ethernet is enough, but I would also say it is ridiculous. This is just the overpricing that Apple even has an option for that, to have users who want a little bit more performance in their small home office network or business corporate network, that this is not a standard, that Apple really needs to, is so cheap that they basically need to have everyone overpay another $100. I would even, sure, stuff costs, but it doesn't cost $100 more, right? I would even say as a compromise, give users 2.5 gigs for free or stuff, but yeah. For this price, you can buy or build more performance Ryzen, right? If you look at this performance, so this performance is of course, not epic thread-ripping Ryzen performance. So for this price, I basically built for €2,500. This is what I spent for my Ryzen 7 7950X, 750X build, with more memory, right? With 64 gigs of memory. And that is ridiculous, right? This just shows, sure, my Ryzen is larger, although I could build it in a smaller case if I wanted to. And now the Ryzen you could build even cheaper, because since I built it since the launch day, the prices came down a little bit and there are cheaper motherboards. And it is more upgradable, right? I give Apple two things. I mean, sure, it is ARM. If this is a pro benefit or not, pro or con, depends on your use case. It is the biggest benefit of the Apple stuff is energy efficiency and size. And you obviously don't build a Ryzen 7000 series as tiny as that. But on the plus side, the PC stuff obviously is more extensible, right? If you need more performance in some months, you exchange the GPU, you swap in more SSD or memory. That is certainly the biggest drawback here of this integrated Apple stuff. Otherwise, it is of course similar. So other improvements you get is due to the new SoC, you get here more display outputs. Somewhere that is written, you know, have higher bandwidth, especially the Pro version, more displays. Here somewhere it's written up to 3 displays or something like that, wherever the display configuration is. But yeah, these configurations don't get them. That results in a totally future not proof configurations. I'm also really wondering what, like in the meantime, I call Apple not only peak bugs for all their macOS bugs, but also in the meantime, I call Apple the company previously known for design, because I find it really boring that like there were artist renderings of rumors and stuff, that we don't get something more modern looking. I mean, it is ridiculous that already last year we had artist renderings and fan renderings of rumored Mac Mini updates that looked more stylish than this 10-year-old thing. Sure, look doesn't really matter much at all, but like that we can't have this at least black, that there is not anything new, is why I call Apple in the meantime the company previously known for design, because you can't be the state-of-the-art design company when like you never change the design. And I mean, I would not even say that this is lots of designs like, hey, it's a freaking rounded aluminum rectangle. It's like there. Anyway, just wanted to shout this out. Also, if you're interested in this Windows Dev Kit that obviously you can also boot OpenBSD or probably in the meantime Linux with, you have that here for $5.99. And otherwise, I mean, sure, there are no other SKUs. The CPU performance is half, but for like Raspberry Pi-like stuff, it's probably enough. And here again, recommendation, don't get the base SKU. But then it's of course, I mean, for $9.99, it's still an okay deal. It's just not as amazing as Apple wants. Wait a second, what is even the difference of those two? 8, 10. Others comes with more storage. So yeah, you probably can start with that, because honestly, memory is more important than storage. Another pro tip, because worst case, you can always, or I would in any case recommend plugging in external storage, because we now have, as expected, posts of people of repair shops, of recyclers, that of course some 5 years later, this soldered on SSD Macs keep stacking up in repair and recycling piles, because obviously when your SSD is worn out, you reach the 1000 write cycles here, or 1000 or 2000, whatever it is in the meantime, especially when you have very few memory and your Mac is constantly swapping there to SSD. Then it's like, yeah, some 5 years later or so, then it's a brick kind of sort of. So be a pro and smart and plug in some portable SSD storage in some high performance USB port there for cheaper storage and longevity. So I hope you enjoyed this and learned something. As always, don't forget to share and subscribe. I hope this helped, and looking forward to see you for the next videos and updates coming next.